Hi, my name is Marcy Stromgren, and I am with Just the Facts. I have in my studio today my guest, Chad Pearson. He is representing the ranked choice voting issue, and he's here to educate us about the issue on ranked choice voting. Welcome, Chad. It's so nice to have you with us today.
It's great to be here. I'm happy to have the opportunity to talk about this ballot initiative today.
Okay, well, Chad is a mathematics instructor at the University of Minnesota for the last 15 years. He's interested in voting methods in the last several years, and he's part of a group of mathematicians and statisticians at the university. Yeah, looking at at various methods about voting. Recently felt it important to educate the public about choices on ballot this November. This is on November 3rd, by the way. Okay, Chad, since this is on the ballot in November, there will need to be a yes or no vote. Is that correct?
Yes, this is a ballot question that will be on November 3rd in the ballot when you show up to vote. We'll be asking whether or not you approve to have Duluth municipal elections move to ranked choice voting, also called instant runoff voting, and its variant for multi-winner elections, single transferable vote. So it's a mouthful. It's often just referred to as ranked choice voting, RCV for short. And this is on the ballot initiative as a yes or no vote. And there's an important note about the ballot initiative that need to be made. This is not like state ballot initiatives where a passive no vote. If you leave it blank, that's a no vote. You need to vote yes or no for your vote to count on this issue. You need to check one of those two boxes. Yes, check yes or check no. A blank vote is not a no vote. You need to decide which one you want to do, or that vote doesn't count.
Okay. So is this a new system, Chad?
Ranked choice voting, again, or instant runoff voting and its variants are not a new system. This is over 100 years old. And it has been tried and used in places and then often repealed again after a while, after it's been used. So it's not a new system at all. It's new. It's recently come to the forefront and has seen a recent resurgence in the United States with several municipalities, several cities adopting this and using this currently.
Well, okay, you say that it's been around for about 100 years, but you also said that it's been tried and failed.
Right.
And so we're going to find out today why this has been a failure. I hope that that's part of your presentation.
Yes.
And okay, I think we're in for some real informative minutes here, folks. Stay tuned. What is an exhausted ballot?
Okay, so I should probably precede this with, what is the ranked choice voting method? There's a lot of misunderstanding.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's a lot of misunderstanding about how this works and how do we rank the ballots and is it easy or is it complicated and what's going on here, because there has been so much information kind of thrown out there that it's hard maybe for voters to understand what is actually being asked. So do you mind if we run through a sample election?
No.
So voters could see how this would work if Duluth were to adopt this and move over for municipal elections. I mean, the mayoral election and the city council elections, and then a different voting method for the city council at-large election. So there's really two different types of things that this is referring to. Ranked choice voting differs from the current system, which we call plurality, where you only vote for one candidate. You check one box. You have to make that decision and decide that. But we do it in two rounds, right? We do it in a primary, where a lot of candidates are on the ballot. And then the top two winners from the primary move through and are in the general election in November. And we're allowed time to look at those candidates and get to know those two candidates, kind of without the noise and clutter of all of the candidates, clamoring for attention all the way up to the general election. So that's our current system. Vote for one one path, two paths, then you vote for one of two, and that guarantees that the winner in November has a majority of the votes on that ballot. Ranked choice voting is different in that it does not require the primary election. It eliminates the primary for those elections that will use ranked choice voting, and not every election in the city will use it. Just because it's used on city council and mayor, it will still not be used on the school board elections, which are legally bound to use the current system by state law. So since state law is not on the ballot initiative, we cannot change how the school board elections will be held. They'll still have a primary, and those will still be on the ballot as a vote one. With these other ranked choice votings, if this were to be adopted, would be vote three. So as ranked choice voting in its name says, you rank up to 3 candidates in preference. So you have a first choice, a second choice, and a third choice on the ballot. So you may like someone, but you also kind of like someone else, and you can vote them. You don't have to rank 3 candidates. If you only like one candidate, you can choose one person and leave the other portions of the ballot blank, and then that's your vote for that one person. That increases different complications of the exhausted ballot question. We can get to that in a little bit. I would like to run through, again, a mock election, a sample election, to illustrate how this works, because, again, a lot of the statements out there are that this is very simple. It's very easy to rank 3. You see the ballots with, rank 3 of your favorite candies, or think about your 3 favorite flavors of ice cream, or your favorite parks in Duluth. But I think as we know that choosing candidates is not like choosing candy.
No.
It's not the same as picking your favorite, place in Duluth, which has good feels for, all of them, and you don't really feel that anybody loses. Everybody's kind of a winner in that election. But when we vote for candidates, we have strong feelings, and we may not want to rank 3. We may only like 1 or only like 2, or more than 3 even. So there's lots more complications and nuance with that.
Well, and to compare it to voting for your favorite this or that, I'm not choosing an ice cream to represent me for decisions made on how they spend my money, and to use that as an example is to me a little bit silly.
Yeah. So with my group of people I work with, we've created some fake candidates that could be representatives in Duluth that could run for an election. We don't want to use any current names, but we just made up some people, and I'll run through kind of, if you want to, let me just run through. There's Jason Arndt, who's 36 years old. He's Anglo-American. He's from Thief River Falls, married with 2 kids. He has a political science degree from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, and he's worked here for 10 years for various communications companies. Karl Reyes is 47 years old. He's a Latino-American man, served in the Minnesota National Guard, spent a year in Iraq, married, father of 4. Mary Simmons, age 39, she's an African-American woman. She's a widowed mother of 2. She has a bachelor's degree in social work from University of Wisconsin, Superior, 12 years managing nonprofit organizations in the area. Betty Williams, 44, is an Anglo-American woman, born in Duluth, married, mother of 3, former 5th grade teacher in the school district. She's a retired stay-at-home mom and caretaker for her elderly parents. Ray Zellen, 23, young man, Anglo-American, born in Duluth, not married, no kids. He just completed his bachelor's degree, and he's been working at Best Buy for 4 years. So if you want, again, some personality to these, otherwise we're just going to talk about the mathematical structure of how we run through the election. And again, you could think, well, I like candidate, a first place candidate, a second place candidate, a third place candidate, and what your rankings would be with regards to those really limited biopics that I've put there. But what we've done is created a possible ballot result from this right here, where these are maybe how the vote shook out. Of 100 voters, and we've simplified it down to be 100 just as a nice round number. It would work if these were times 10 or times 1,000. The process would still work the same even if these were larger numbers. And what we've done is we've counted out the various ways people chose to fill out their ballot in this election. So you can see that 10 people filled out their ballot voting for Mary Simmons first, and no other choices. They liked Mary Simmons. They didn't think anybody else met the threshold that they wanted to rank, so they did not choose to do that, and that's your choice in a ranked voting election. 22 people voted for Mary Simmons first, Betty Williams second, Ray Zellen third. 27 people chose Karl Reyes first, Mary Simmons second, and then had no preference in the third choice. 26 people chose Jason Arndt first, Ray Zellen second, and again had no preference in their third choice. 6 people like Betty Williams first, Karl Reyes second, Ray Zellen third, and 9 people like Betty Williams first, Jason Arndt second, and Mary Williams third. Now,
Mary Simmons.
Mary Simmons, thank you. This is a small sample of the possible ways to vote the ballot. This is one of the complexities of ranked choice voting. If you have 5 candidates like this, and you think about all of the possible ways to rank those candidates, it ends up being over 80 possible possible ballot permutations. So you have a lot of different things, ways to rank these candidates, ways to express your approval in the ballot box with a ranked choice voting ballot. But what I want to do is, again, it's maybe not complicated for you to think, well, I can rank 3 candidates. I can choose my preference. If I spend the time and do the due diligence, I can choose that. But what happens now? How does this ballot get counted? How do we elect a winner, right? Select the winner. How does the counting process work? And this is where I think this gets a little bit more complicated, and we really need to understand this. If we're going to choose this as our voting method for Duluth, we should understand how the votes will be tallied so that we have faith in the results and we have transparent results in that system. So what I've created is what's called a rounds table right here.
Do you want this still up here?
Yeah, that would be great, because we're going to use those numbers right here and then transfer that to a round. We're going to do round 1, round 2, and round 3. And each round is like a new election, like a runoff election. So we rank these through, except instead of choosing the 2 best, we eliminate the worst. We eliminate the lowest first place vote getter in each election here, so in each round. So I'm going to transfer this ballot data over here. How many first place votes does each candidate get on this piece of information right here? So I'm going to tally up Mary Simmons' first place votes. Notice she's got 10 ballots that ranked her first, nobody second or third, and 22 ballots that ranked her first, and then Betty and Ray second and third. But we're only looking at the first round, the first choice right now. And she has a combined 10 plus 22, which gives her 32. I'm right-handed here. This is going to be first place votes. So that's her tally in the first round. Now, we have Karl Reyes only has these 27 ballots, so that's 27 first place votes. Jason Arndt has 26. Ray Zellen. Notice Ray Zellen was nobody's first choice. He's the young upstart, 23-year-old. Maybe he doesn't have a lot of name recognition. He was ranked down lower, but since he has no first place votes, he essentially scores 0 in that first round. And then Betty Williams has 6 plus 9 is 15 first place votes. And in the first round, every single vote is counted. There are no exhausted ballots. And you asked me earlier what exhausted ballots were. This is a good time to kind of introduce that.
Okay.
Because as we go through this, we're going to transfer some of these votes. These votes are going to get shifted around and redistributed. And as the redistribution process happens, you may not have a candidate left on here to transfer your vote to. Then your vote gets thrown away, gets put in the throwaway pile. It's called an exhausted ballot. It no longer gets a voice. You no longer get a voice in this election. You're done. So that will never happen in the first round because we haven't eliminated anybody yet. This is like the primary, right, where we're selecting these types of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate now Ray Zellen. He's done.
So all those votes.
Well, he had no first place votes. This is interesting, right? He had no first place votes. Right. He was nobody's first choice.
But those who voted for him in the other.
Well, so that
their second choices, they don't even get a voice.
Well, not yet. Let's walk through this because it does get to be a little bit more complicated. We're not looking at the second or third column yet for anybody because the person who was eliminated had no first place votes. With this ballot data is here, but we don't look at it until those people in front of them are eliminated. Then we look at that. So it's there, but it's hidden until we get through the rounds. In this framework right here. So we're going to go back to round 2 now, and this is no different really because there were no first place votes for Ray Zellen. There's no votes to redistribute it. So everybody's numbers just transfer over. We have 32, 27, 26, 15, and there are no exhausted ballots yet again. So that's still 0 in that column. Now we are going to transfer some votes, right? Because now we see that nobody's got 0 votes. So there's some people who have a lot of preference, but nobody had, but there's also one person that has the least amount of preference right now, or in first place votes, least amount of votes in first place, and that is Betty Williams. So Betty Williams gets eliminated at this point. She's no longer in this, but those votes don't get thrown away, right? We look at Betty Williams down here. She has 2 different types of people voted for her. Some people who liked Karl Reyes second, and some people who like Jason Arndt as their second choice.
Sure, okay.
Now I'm going to take and redistribute those votes to Karl Reyes. This is now a 3-person race, right? It's Mary, Karl, and Jason. And we're going to redistribute those votes. So right here, 6 of these votes right here are going to go to Karl. So Karl is going to have plus 6 equals 33. And that's Karl's new total as Betty Williams is eliminated. And Jason is going to get 9 of those votes. So we're going to do plus 9 is equal to 35. No votes were redistributed to Mary Simmons. She was nobody's second. She was not Betty Williams' second choice on any of these ballots right here.
Isn't that interesting?
And now we still have no exhausted ballots because everybody's ballot is still counted. Betty Williams is no longer in this election. We're not looking at that row anymore.
So you took her votes and gave them to...
They were redistributed to Karl and Jason.
Okay.
I should point out now, too, that I missed a point at the beginning. There is a threshold number of winner. If anybody had gotten 51 votes in the first round, since there's 100 voters in here, and you always take 50% of the ballots plus 1.
Okay.
Right? So anybody who gets a majority wins. And that's our current system as well. Anybody who gets a majority is going to win in the election. So that's true. And you see that nobody had a majority. Nobody had 51% of the votes. The votes were distributed across this.
So that's why we end up going with round 1, round 2,
yes,
round 3, and 4.
So some elections, it doesn't matter. We're doing a ranked choice voting. It's the same as our current system. If someone gets 50% first place votes, they win. We don't do this rounds
Okay.
At all. I should have pointed that out at the beginning. But we're now in round 3, and this is a tight election all of a sudden, right?
Yes, it is.
We got 3 people who are very close together, but it's not a tie. We have Mary Simmons has the least amount of votes left out of 33, 35, and 32. So that means...
And she was originally out there in front.
Yeah, Mary is eliminated from this election. She was originally the first place vote getter. She got the most first place votes. And now she's being eliminated in this round. And her votes, her votes are now getting redistributed, except there were 10 people who didn't like anybody but Mary Simmons. So there are no redistribution votes to go. So this is where we get to, oops, that's upside down, sorry. 10 exhausted ballots. That those were not counted, not being counted now, because those are eliminated. No one select their preference of their second choice. Maybe they didn't like anybody, maybe they didn't understand how the system works, or for some reason they didn't choose anybody there. And the other 22 chose Betty Williams second. But where's Betty Williams?
She's out.
She's out, right? So those votes don't get redistributed to Betty Williams. We move down to Ray Zellen. And where's Ray Zellen?
Well, he's in the third
so
choice.
So all of these ballots are also exhausted. So that's 10 plus 22.
32 exhausted ballots.
32 exhausted ballots. That's 32% of the voters are not being counted in the final round at this point.
Have no say in this election.
Have no say in this election. And just for comparison, in the most recent Minneapolis election in 2013, 20% of the ballots were exhausted. 15,000 ballots did not have a say in the final election. So this 32 number, it seems excessive, but it's big. In the most recent Oakland mayoral election, I think it's 24% of the ballots were exhausted. And in the most recent San Francisco mayoral election, over 25%. I think it was 27% of the ballots were exhausted. So did not have a say in the final round. And an exhausted ballot is equivalent to being able to vote in the primary in one of these earlier rounds, but then not getting a voice in the final election.
Oh my.
So these people, especially the people who ranked 3 other candidates, may have had a preference with regard to Jason and Karl. They may have I like Karl better or I like Jason better, but they're out of the election. They don't get a say. No, it's just who's left that gets a say. So, and again, with the ranked choice voting, they don't know that going into it, who's going to be left here.
No, they wouldn't.
So they cannot necessarily make an informed decision, like under the current system, where you know the two people. You have 8 weeks, right, or 6 weeks, to get to know the two candidates and make an informed decision on the two that are left. So let's finish this up because I'm getting ahead of myself here. Mary Simmons is out. Betty Williams and Karl and Ray Zellen are out, and now we have to choose between. Really, no votes were redistributed, right? So
no.
The winner, right here, the winner in the final round is who has the most votes. And that's going to be Jason Arndt. Jason Arndt in that case. With 35% of the votes, 35 out of 100, which is not a majority. This is a claim that's often made, is that ranked choice voting guarantees a majority. It can give you a majority winner, but it doesn't guarantee a majority winner. And again, in the most recent Minneapolis election, Betsy Hodges won with about 48% of the ballots cast. She won in the final round with the majority in the final round, but with 20% of the ballots exhausted, she only had about 48%, which is less than the majority of the people who voted in the election. So it did not guarantee a majority. She's the winner. She had the most votes, but she did not have a majority. And that's how this works. So again, this has 5 candidates. This election has 5 candidates, and it required us, 10 or 15 minutes here to walk through how this works with small numbers. So you can imagine with bigger numbers, more candidates, this election becomes more complicated. There are more variants. There's more variations in the type of outcome. More ways to get a spoiled ballot or exhausted ballot. A spoiled ballot is a different thing we can talk about later, but an exhausted ballot, it increases the complexity. I actually have another graphic here. This is a little bit smaller. Just clear it up here. This is what a Duluth 2007 ballot would have looked like under ranked choice voting. So 2007 was the last time we had a competitive mayoral race, right? When Don Ness and Charlie Bell were in the primary election. And these were all of the candidates that were on the primary that year. There was 12 of them. So without the primary, all of the candidates would go through to the general election, and that's what the mayoral ballot would look like. You also have a at-large council race right below that, and this is different because this is 2 winners. You still rank 3, but they're going to choose 2 winners. Now that uses a different, more complicated counting system, which will also require fractions. You get fractional reapportionment of votes, and it's much more complicated than the system that I just explained, than the one we did. And then if you were at Council District 5, this would be your ballot. This would be the other ranked choice election for the city councilor in that election. And then on the other side of the ballot, we also had to be, completely, I think we had 2 ballot referendum questions on here and a school board election, right, at the bottom right here, which is not a ranked voting election. So there would have been a primary to winnow the field down to these 2, and then you would have voted for 1. So this ballot essentially has 3 different voting methods on it. It has a ranked choice choose 2 ranked choice choose 1 ballots, a ranked choice choose 2, also called single transferable vote, which is a different counting algorithm, and then a plurality election ballot, which is the current system that we're used to. This is what a Duluth ballot would essentially look like with 3 different voting methods on the ballot.
If there's any of my listeners out there that need to have something more than one time,
I'm sorry.
This is,
I'm a math professor or instructor for a living, so I talk about these types of things, and I can go on and on.
But you did an excellent job. I'm not.
Thank you.
I am not criticizing Chad's presentation. I am saying if you're like me, you will not sit through and listen to this one time and totally have it. This is complicated. Our system is not broken that we have right now. Why do we want to try and change it? And I don't know if we have time to answer that question, but I'm certainly asking the public out there to think about what is happening here. We have a system, and to me, I think it's silly to change it because it certainly is going to take time. And as an election judge, myself, we already have enough to do. Even though the machines do the counting, we have to verify every single person that came in there. That takes time enough. I mean, election results go in a lot faster than they used to, but when I was the first election judge, my son is now 47. He was a year old the first time I was election judge. Sometimes we would not get out of there, depending on the election, till midnight. This will take a long period of time. I don't know if they have machines even developed to count it yet.
The Duluth has new voting machines, and we're told can handle ranked choice ballots, so they can handle it, but we do not have the software right now to count the ranked choice ballots. So that will be a cost that will be associated, an unknown cost. I have no idea how much it would cost to.
Okay. And I asked this question the other day of Catherine, and she couldn't answer that question. So, okay, so is it time that no system? Is it time that no system is perfect?
It's true that no system is perfect. When you have three candidates, there is no perfect system that guarantees, a majority winner in this type of thing. That all of the different desired outcomes for an election. So that's true. Our current system has flaws. Our current system has flaws, and ranked choice voting has flaws. But the truth is, when you have two candidates, there is a perfect system, and that's the current system. So we have, right now, the perfect system for the general election, where there's two candidates and you vote for one. A majority winner always comes through on that system. So.
Okay. Well, we have up to 45 minutes. We've got about a half an hour left on our time here, 15 minutes, I'm sorry. So in 15 minutes, let's go through these other questions or ideas that you wrote down here, Chad. Minneapolis has used ranked choice voting. How has it worked?
The proponents will often say, it's worked for Minneapolis. They've had 2 elections, and they haven't had any problems. And that's true, to a point. In 2009, the first time Minneapolis used ranked choice voting, they had 20% voter turnout in the general election, which was the lowest turnout in 100 years. And they had a heavily favored incumbent mayor running. But one of the statements, I think, that proponents of ranked choice voting is it increases voter participation, it increases involvement, whatever that means. But we know that it hasn't guaranteed a high turnout for the elections. In 2013, Minneapolis had 33% turnout. That was a more competitive race. But if you look at the 2 preceding plurality elections, before they switched to instant runoff voting, both of the turnouts for those elections were over 40% for the municipal elections. So they have seen a decline, even in their competitive elections for mayor in Minneapolis since adopting ranked choice voting.
Does RC voting eliminate negative campaigning?
That's another common statement that proponents will claim, is that you need broad support and you need multiple candidates and you need to be civil to win an election. And I truly don't see that with so many candidates being on the ballot and vying to get those top 3 rankings. If you have a lot of money, if you are well known, it might be an incentive for you to be civil. But if you're not, how are you going to get your voice heard through this? You see this, with lots of candidates right now in other elections where people are saying, inflammatory things and saying very, outrageous things to try to get through to the media. In that case, to get their voice heard and get known, so that they can get on the debate stage, even, right? I mean, who decides who is in a debate? If you have 12 candidates, do you have a meaningful debate on that stage? Does every candidate get 1 minute? For 4 questions, that's an hour already. 48 minutes, that's an hour plus introductions. You don't have as meaningful and engaged discussion about the issues when you have this many candidates through. I don't see it being civil. And in reality, San Francisco has seen its most recent mayoral election was very uncivil, with a lot of negative campaigning and a lot of attack ads, attacking the incumbent in that election.
And they have ranked choice voting?
San Francisco has ranked choice voting. Oakland has ranked choice voting. They're two cities that have adopted it. There are also 3 cities, or more than 3. There's at least 5 cities, but there's 3 cities that I know of specifically: Burlington, Vermont, Aspen, Colorado, and Pierce County, Washington, that had a referendum, adopted ranked choice voting, did 1 or 2 elections, and then immediately had another referendum to repeal it because they had really bad results. They did not like the outcome. They did not like the complexity. They did not like the lack of transparency with the system, and repealed it. So again, to say that it's a proven system, if you only look at just 1 or 2 cases, maybe yeah, but when you look at all of the cases, you start to see that there's some troubling flaws, especially when you have close elections, and the variations can be very visible there.
Will RC voting guarantee a majority winner?
Right, we talked a little bit about that with our sample,
that.
right?
Yes, we did.
It doesn't guarantee a majority winner, which is another
No.
statement that proponents will make, that this guarantees a majority winner. But you can see it didn't happen in Minneapolis. I don't think it happened in San Francisco, most recent mayoral election. It didn't happen in our sample right here. You can win with less than a majority of the ballots cast.
Does RC eliminate the spoiler?
So the spoiler problem is the big one, right? Why would we want to switch to a new system? Our system seems to be working well, and then you see an election like 2000 where Ralph Nader is often presumed to have been the spoiler for the candidate to prevent Gore from winning, and that's presuming that all of the Nader supporters would have shifted their support to Gore, and which is maybe a safe assumption, maybe not. Maybe people didn't like Gore and just wanted to vote for Nader. So in that case, maybe, probably, it would have eliminated spoiler, but there's other cases, and again, we've seen this in Burlington, Vermont, Aspen, Colorado, where the spoiler effect came in a different way. It came where you have 3 candidates, and one candidate ended up siphoning off support in the later rounds, and then overcoming and eliminating who people thought was a heavily favored candidate who maybe should have won. So the spoiler problem is also not eliminated with ranked choice voting. It's different. It changes it, but it's not eliminated.
Does RC eliminate the wasted vote?
So the wasted vote is another common thing. It's like you don't have to vote for your least favorite candidate. You don't have to choose the lesser of 2 evils. It's a wasted vote. I don't necessarily agree with the sentiment on that idea, but a wasted vote might also be that you didn't choose you didn't know who was going to make it through to the final round, and there's no way that you would necessarily know who's in the final round, so you can't rank a preferred or favorite candidate. And you can't know, so your ballot gets exhausted, and then was your vote wasted? I mean, that's potentially one way to interpret what a wasted vote is.
Well, as you were doing that, Chad, I was thinking about Mary Simmons here. What if I voted for her 3 times?
Right.
That would certainly have changed the figures here. Would they have not?
It would not have changed a thing.
It would not have changed.
Let me talk about this, because Mary Simmons is a very interesting example in this case. If you would have voted Mary Simmons in second and third as well, if you said Mary Simmons first, Mary Simmons second, Mary Simmons third, that would have just counted as the same as this ballot.
Oh.
It would have said that was your first choice, your second choice, and your third choice. It's all just your first choice. That's one choice. That's how we interpret that ballot.
Okay.
And if you notice, Mary Simmons is on a majority of the ballots.
Yes, she is.
She is on 9 plus 27, that's 36, plus 32 is 8 ballots. So she is on a majority. She's a preference for a majority of winners. And she is ranked higher than Jason, well, on at least 1, 2, 3 ballots.
Right.
3 sets of those ballots, a majority of those ballots right there.
Right.
So people preferred Mary. Necessarily, if they didn't rank Jason, you presume they didn't prefer him. They preferred Mary, a majority of the ballots. So this is actually more insidious.
And
it's not just doesn't guarantee a majority winner.
No.
It may hide this preference right here is hidden in the second place. And since Karl is not eliminated he's never eliminated, he's in the final round. This preference never gets measured, even though these people would have probably preferred Mary over Jason. They never got to express that preference because that was hidden in the ballot data. So
much for the most ballots cast for the most popular person in this ranked choice voting.
Right,
they ultimately could lose anyway.
One way to interpret this is that Mary Simmons was the most popular candidate in the election, and she's on the most of the ballots, and she's higher than Jason on more ballots than Jason was. And she's, I think, the broad support candidate that a majority of people liked, but did not win the election. She was eliminated in the third round. So again, was Karl Reyes the spoiler in that case? I think that's how you could interpret that, right? That if he hadn't been in the election, Mary Simmons would have won. You can take this ballot data and change these numbers around and play with this. Try to do a ranked choice vote count on your own, and see that you can do it. I do it all the time. I'm pretty good at it, but the first couple of times, you have to be mindful of how these votes are getting redistributed and making sure you're not missing anything. And in Pierce County, Washington, that's why they repealed it, because they found it so complex. The software crashed. The people had mistallied the votes, were having trouble counting the votes. And the people were so fed up with the complexity, not of ranking candidates, but of the vote counting process and the results process, that they decided to repeal it within a year.
Well, having been an election judge for many, many years, and I've hand-counted ballots in the township as the clerk, and as an election judge, and I've been in, some elections here in the city of Duluth as an election judge, and by the end of the day, we are tired, folks. We've been there since 6 o'clock in the morning. We're bound to make mistakes, and when you've got the media and everybody else wanting everything the minute you close the polls down, there's a lot of pressure on the election judges. And there's going to be some mistakes. The machines can give us problems. So to me, I am so thankful that you came in here to talk about this today, Chad, because it certainly makes it more clear to me. I hope that the public sees this presentation and understands that voting in favor of ranked choice voting could be like opening a can of worms in the city of Duluth. And so just in a couple of minutes left to go here, Chad, we want to make sure people know that the election is on November 3rd.
Yep.
This is on the ballot. Be informed. Get out there with an informed decision and vote. The votes have been going down in the last few years. This is not going to fix it. The problem is people are tired of the way politics are controlled by big politics is in control of even the little politics here in the city. Elections, the school board elections, fortunately not in the township so much, but nonetheless, you have to be informed. You have to get educated before you make a vote. It's extremely important. Who's going to be leading you? Who's going to be making the decisions on how to spend your tax dollar? I don't know what you would like to wrap up with, but I'm just going to let you talk in the last few minutes, Chad, and share whatever you need.
I would like to make a few more points. Again, it's the voting system is sold as being as simple as 1, 2, 3. That may be true with ranking candidates. That may not be true, depending on how much involvement in research you're going to do on election with a lot of ballots. So is it simple? Is it not simple? That's a question you should be thinking. Definitely, the counting process is more complex than the current system. Everybody understands, add up the total, precinct to precinct, who's got the most. That's a simple system, easy for voters to verify and check that the winner is who we say there's, as opposed to having a machine do the counting or experts do the counting and then just trusting those experts or trusting the machines to do that, and maybe most people not understanding actually what happened within the ballot counting process. I think that Duluth is seen as a civic leader in the country, right? We have high voter turnout. We're often called the voting capital of the United States. I think we have very civil elected leaders right now. That the current system, really, is it broken? Do we need a solution for what's ailing Duluth? Is there anything ailing Duluth right now? I think that's a good question to ask. And then the idea of an exhausted ballot. Again, I can't reiterate that enough. If you don't know who one of the favorite candidates is going to be, and you don't rank a favored candidate. You won't know going through because the rounds process is compressed. You have a chance of getting your vote exhausted and not counting, going in the waste pile. You may have a preference on the final round. And this is equivalent to voting in the primary and then not being allowed to vote in the general election. And that, you turned out to vote, but you didn't really maybe have a say, or your say wasn't expressed in the way that you thought it was. And that could potentially be a problem. So I'd encourage everybody, this is on the ballot on November 3rd. It's a yes or no ballot. It's not a passive no. You can't leave it blank and expect that that's a no vote. You need to check yes or check no on that ballot whether or not you think ranked choice voting is a solution that we need in this town.
Well, thank you very much. I've learned quite a bit here, and I hope my viewers have as well. Thank you so much, Chad, for coming in today.
Thank you, Mercy. This has been a wonderful time.
Thank you. Bye now.